in tech, AI, robots, humanity's relationship with its own creation. Of course you are. Look, it's the way of the future. Welcome to Northern Vibe. I'm Matt Maloney, the host and founder of Northern Vibe, and I've got a great chat for you. I spoke to Marita Cheng. Now, Marita is an amazing lady. She's founded 2 companies. She's in the top 50 women in tech. She's in the most influential people who are 30 and the most influential 30 people under 30. She's a Churchill Fellow. She's an Energy Summit Asia Leadership Award winner. She's an Order of Australia, and most of all, Cairns girl. She chatted about her new book. She chatted about tech. She chatted about artificial intelligence, its relationship with humanity, what it means to be human. You don't want to miss out on this one. Okay, it's true that this is a geek out nerd fest, guilty as charged, but you don't need to be a nerd, a dork, a spaz, or even a geek to appreciate her insights. This goes for a little bit over 45 minutes, so dive in, listen, learn from this magnificent, inspirational, intelligent, insightful young woman. But enough from me. Let's hear from Marita Cheng. If you haven't already done so, please like, please share, please follow Northern Vibe. Thank you all.
Thanks, Matt. I like the vibes here.
Yeah, that's it, mate. And you know, look, I know the good people of Cairns we're all thrilled to see a local girl coming good on frankly, not just the national, the world stage. So it's absolutely awesome what you're doing. And I'm going to get fanboy straight away. We're just, you know, for what it's worth, we're genuinely really proud of you up here in the Redneck Farm. Also, it's great to see you kicking backside. But to add to your incredible...
Thanks. No, I love all the support that I get up in Cairns. It's really, you know, it's really nice to be supported by my hometown.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, yeah, Cairns pride. So, mate, look, we rather than go through your incredible list of accomplishments, I know the thing that you've done most recently to add to that list is to write a book. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, sure. So I wrote a book. It took me a while. It actually took me like 8 months to write my book. But it came about because of something called generative artificial intelligence. And it was first like announced in a big way by OpenAI in like January 2021. And then a year and a half later, in like August 2022, Stability AI announced that they came up with a similar algorithm. They made it open source, and that's when the technology really exploded, because people knew that they could take that technology and use it in so many different ways. And so I got really excited back then. In September last year, that I wanted to write a book. Away. I decided, because I wanted to use this technology in a way that could like add value to the world in some way that could like last. And so after thinking about it for a bit, I thought maybe like a book would be the best thing, because there were so many different ideas coming out then. Like, things are just moving so quickly. People were like just trying to make different things that could add value. Anyway, so I decided my way would be a book, and so started writing it October last year. Just like writing drafts and like just experimenting with like generative AI art, trying to figure out like what kind of style I wanted for my book. So it took me about 3 months to like write maybe 6 or 7 drafts until I was kind of happy with like what I wanted my book to be like. And then in January, I started by January, I'd done like enough small experiments that I figured out what kind of style I wanted for my book. And so it took me like all of January and February to like generate all the images for this book, and like kind of place them together and figure out like what I wanted to create. And actually, yeah, some of my favorite pages are actually this one, which is like the Great Barrier Reef. Yeah, it's like showing me growing up in the Great Barrier Reef. So I like that. It's actually really, really vivid, and it's like super fun. So I love that. And then because I really wanted to highlight Cairns, right? I really want to like showcase what Cairns is, because you know our industry is like tourism, right? We really want people to know about our area. And so the second page is like the Daintree, basically. So yeah, and then like first pages are all about like growing up in Cairns and like the different things that I did, like the Esplanade is mentioned, that kind of thing. Anyway, it was only like in March after I'd like gotten together the whole first draft of the book, that I started having my friends like read it to like edit it. And then by the end of March, that's when I was like, I want to like make a book. Like originally I was just going to put it on my website and say, hey, look at this thing I created. But then I just really wanted to hold it, you know, in my hand and be like, I made this physical thing.
Yep.
And so, yeah, after I decided that I was going to make it into a book, I realized like the quality of book that I'd created so far was like too low quality for print. And so I had to like redo the entire thing. Yeah, like in like over like 6 weeks basically. After I decided that I was going to make and just like make the whole thing like really, really high quality so that it was good for print. And yeah, so I finished that by May, and then I was like, what am I going to call it? And that was really hard. So I brainstormed like 100 different words of like different names that I thought I liked, and then I fed that to ChatGPT, and I said, hey ChatGPT, let's work on this together. What should I call my book? And over a day, we brainstormed like 270 names. And I decided on this one. You know, it took me a few days to like really process it and be like, this is the one. But yeah, that's what we stuck with. And then same with the cover. I had like all just come together really well. And so I tried like generating like just single images here that were just beautiful on their own. But the first one I generated, which I really, really liked, was a bit moody and a bit like kind of too old. Like I looked too old and cool. And then the second one I generated, I looked like too young and happy and like childish kind of thing, like kind of like camp counselor kind of thing. Like anyway, so yeah, then I decided that I would like just use a image from like my book. And so this is one of the images on the inside here. It's this page. And so yeah, I decided I'll just like modify that and use it for my cover.
It's
there
very anime, and I love anime.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's
with
really
getting that,
thing.
do you actually design it? Like when you say this interface, do pardon my phenomenal ignorance on this. I have, like, I know ChatGPT exists, but I've never actually used it. Do you design something and bounce stuff off this technology, or does the technology find stuff, bring it back and say, hey, do you like this? Like, how does it work?
Oh no, it's pretty incredible. It's basically like being able to talk to Google, like have an actual conversation with Google. And so you like log in and you say, hello, I want to, I'm brainstorming a book name. Here are some words that I've come up with so far. May you come up with like 20 other names that are similar to this, but different. And then it comes out with like 20 different words. And like, it's just, and the names might be like 6 words long each. So it might be like Marita the Marvelous, blah, 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 like I don't know, just like all these things. And so you're like, is that what I want to do, or is it like a little bit different? And then you tell it, no, that's not quite right. Like, what if we, you know, do this with it? What if we do that with it? And then you like, yeah, keep giving it more and more suggestions. It's just like a colleague, basically. You know, if you want to like chin wag with like a colleague, and you're like, hey, you know, I'm thinking about this idea. What do you think? And then like the colleague actually like responds with like 20 ideas. That's kind of what ChatGPT is like. And like, you know, the ideas may be terrible, but like, even though they may be terrible, there might be like, you know, 2 or 3 out of the 20 that you're like, oh, I hadn't thought about that before, and that's actually pretty good. And it's the same with ChatGPT. Like sometimes it comes up with things that are like really simple, and you're like, that's simple, but it's good. Or it just comes up with like a word for how you would say it that you hadn't thought about. And so it's really interesting, like how clever it is.
Wow. You know, I must say, I find this absolutely fascinating. And, you know, well, actually, before we go into that, where can people get this book?
You can get it from amazon.com.au. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. You can get it in 12 different countries. So you can get it in like the US, UK, Australia, obviously, Canada, like Germany, France, Poland, Estonia, Spain, Italy. But yeah, you can get it in Australia, Far North Queensland. So yeah, it's super convenient.
There we go. So and Amazon is the way to do it, is it?
Yeah, that's right.
The reason
Yeah, that's it.
I may make the observation at $19.76. That's not too bad at all. All right, fantastic.
Yeah.
Mate, that's really, really exciting and adds to the incredible list of accomplishments you have. And we will go into that. But you've really piqued my interest in regards to this ChatGPT because, I mean this in a very positive way. You're a tech geek extraordinaire. And this tech geekness has led you to, be named as let me list your achievements. I think it's the top 50 women in tech, 30 under 30. You founded 2 companies, got an Order of Australia, Churchill Fellowship, Energy Summit, Asia's Leadership Award, and of course all the speaking, writing, and now your book. But where do you think AI and ChatGPT is going? Like, especially considering that it's actually passed the Turing test by some standards now. What's your feelings on this?
Oh, it is really clever. I mean, I saw an article today saying that the Australian government was like discouraging people in government using ChatGPT to assess people's grant applications. They were like, no, don't do that. Like, it's not reliable enough. It's not good enough. And I'm like, oh, the headline was like, oh, this is interesting. And then like when you actually read when you read some more words, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I wouldn't want ChatGPT to like assess whether I get a grant or not. So I think this is a really exciting space. I mean, yeah, immediately after, like, various search engines, including Bing, invested billions of dollars into OpenAI in order to incorporate that technology into their search engines to make it more interactive for people. I think it's definitely useful for helping people to come up with new ideas. It's good at coming up with a huge quantity ideas. I think curating those ideas and like choosing what to use is still what like the human should do right now, in order to like create like high quality content. And so that's actually why I chose not to use ChatGPT to like write my book. I chose to like write everything in my book myself, so that the text would be like high quality. And I wanted the story to be like really strong and like stand on its own, regardless of like what the images look like. And so I put a lot of work into the text and just like ensuring that like the story was told well and it flowed well. If I had like ChatGPT come up with all the text, I think the product would be like lower quality. It would have been, but yeah, I wanted it to have soul basically. And I feel like with the images, even though like it was AI generated, like I mean, this is like 30 different images here that I had to painstakingly edit. And I generated like over 10,000 images, 10,400 images to create this book. And so, yeah, I feel like I edited and curated the images enough that like I feel like my book has soul.
Well, we don't want to give away too much to stop, so much that people won't buy it. But can you tell us what it's about? Like, what's the theme?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, the book is actually like a memoir. So it's actually about my life. And so it talks about like my childhood in Cairns, with the Great Barrier Reef and the Daintree. And then it goes on to me going to university and noticing that there weren't many girls in my class. And so I decided to do something about it. And I started a nonprofit at RoboGals, which works to get girls interested in engineering all around the world. It's still going great. They had their board meeting last night and I was like, hey guys, help me promote it. And they're having their conference tomorrow in Melbourne for people all around, our volunteers all around Australia, the Philippines, Japan, China, New Zealand. So it's our Australia Pacific conference tomorrow. And then I talk about, going to university, learning how to build robots, starting iPoly, which is a app to that enabled blind people to identify everyday objects. And that technology is now being used in it's been absorbed by a larger company that's using it to create AI tools so that anyone can do computer vision. And then starting my robotics company. So, and then the robots that I built. And so it's meant to like inspire young girls into engineering. And yeah, and it was just a really fun project, honestly. Like I really enjoyed working on it. And I think the other thing is like I wanted to inspire girls about yeah, like what pathways are out there, or just like, you know, different things that are out there, and just like tell stories that like girls wouldn't have heard of. Yeah.
Well, that's I got well, this has got so much going in my head right now. I really want to hear about your companies. I want you to, you know, discuss Aeropoly, Autobot, all these things. But I've read a fair bit of your work, and especially from your Churchill Fellowship, there's something that I've noticed that you've clicked on that really isn't instinctual for totally logical, techie kind of people. And that is you understand the power of narrative. I noticed on your Churchill Fellowship, you spoke specifically about telling stories that girls are involved in to get people in tech. Now, it's kind of, I think it's really cool that you're someone who understands the power of narrative. And like where did this, because I don't associate that with tech per se. Like where did this come from? How did you pick that up?
You know, I think it just comes from like wanting to do stuff that makes a difference. And I think that in tech, sometimes it's not always about that. It's about, I think everyone wants to make a difference, but sometimes people want to make a difference by like making their code faster, or making their code like more efficient, or something about their code, or selling their code or whatever. And I think for me, I was like, oh, I really want to have yeah, I just want to create something that like really helps someone, that like really has like a lasting impact. And I mean, yeah, like with my book, I just really wanted to, I learned about this technology and I thought, oh, I really want to play with it, and I really want to get involved, and what's something I could do that would, yeah, let me learn about it. And so, you know, I came up with this book. But in the past, I guess like with iPoly, I thought, you know, how can we use this technology of recognizing images in real time on a mobile phone to help people? And so we were like, hey, let's do object recognition for the blind. And that's what we did. And that really resonated with people as well. And people all over the world responded to that and really supported our company. And so I think, yeah, just like using technology to help people is like a really strong theme for me. And yeah, it does resonate with people, because it's like, let's use this to make our lives better in like in real ways.
Absolutely. And it's that interplay between technology and humanity. I'm really, obviously you've got an incredibly unique perspective on this. And your book is a really good example of that, because like this interplay between the relationship between you and AI, writing that book, and the relationships between, you know, this magnificent app that you've kind of like sorted out. But look, I also notice in some ways you're quite kind of ambivalent towards tech, in so much as like you know, one of your articles that you wrote, you spoke about like limiting yourself specifically on device time, making sure you have days off tech, you have all this kind of stuff. And that's because, you know, tech makes a great servant but a terrible master. But how do you find the balance between ensuring that tech is in service of you and devices are in service of you, and you're not in service of them? Because remembering that, you know, technology has specifically been designed to suck human intelligence in. I spoke to Dr. Paula Boddington, who's an expert on AI and the morality around it. She lectures on ethics, and she helped write some of the stuff for the EU and Great Britain on this. And I think it's getting that relationship right. That's such an important thing. What's your take on that? Like, what do you do, and how can we ensure in the future that we don't get subordinated by these intelligences, that are clearly that are human intelligences that are disembodied, and
Yeah.
have really
Yeah.
genuinely have the potential to rule over us. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I use a lot. I use a lot of technology. Like I'm on my computer all the time. I'm on my phone a lot. So just caveat by saying that. But I think, yeah, I know what blog post you're referring to. I think it started when I was in year 12 at St. Mary's Catholic College over in Cairns. And I noticed that like in year 10, year 11, I was like using my computer all the time and I was kind of addicted. And um and it was like if I started using it at like 6 p.m, I'd just be using my computer like all night. And it wasn't like very productive because I'll just like browse or like chat with my friends or I don't know, just like waste time. I wasn't like doing my homework on the computer all night. And so I kind of realized that. And so I came up with a rule for myself in year 12. I said, I'm gonna not do that. I realized that I don't have good self-control around using a computer. And so I'm going to make a rule that I can't use my computer until 11 p.m. because I know that whenever I start using it, I'll be using it until I go to sleep. And so I enacted that rule. And in year 12, I'd do my homework. And then when it came to 11 p.m., I'd log on and I'd use the internet. And then, you know, if I used it for too long, then that was my own fault. And I just got less sleep, which wasn't fun. So I you know, I did that in year 12 and it worked out well for me. I got good grades and all of that. And so I guess like I don't know. And then I think since then, like it's been something that I do like on and off. But yeah, I do notice that like if I like switch off all here's a sheet of paper, I'm gonna start writing, like my mind just like clears and like so much more like is there for me, so much more is present for me, and like I can like be so creative without a computer. And so I think like last year I started noticing that, you know, it was just so distracting for me to have my computer around me all the time, and I wasn't like getting a lot of deep thinking done. And so yeah, I told I told the people I live with, hey, like take my computer, take my phone, take the TV remote, just take everything when you go to work. And because for that day, like while I work from home, and it was really productive because I make sure I have everything that I need to not use my computer. So like print things out, had this, had that, and then I'll be like, okay, yeah, you get a lot done, and you can like really focus, and it's really productive. And so yeah, I try and have those days every now and then. And yeah, I love them. They're great.
So look, and I got to say too, coming back to the book, there is something I find it both. I think it reassuring and cool that you thought, despite all these achievements, you thought, you know, I have to have a book, and it's something that I want to hold in my hand, because there really is something about getting that and opening that page. And okay, look, it's not as easy to distribute. It's better to do things electronically. It's, you know, it's cheaper. It's, you know, it's more efficient. It's going to reach more people. It's all these kind of, but it's just not the same, is it? It's just not the same as getting that book in your hot little hands. And
Yeah, for sure. Like when I was like, what should I do with this? And like the initial idea was like, put it on my website, everyone can see it. Like, hey, look at this cool thing I did. But then just the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, but to hold it in your hand, and I mean, it's really designed to like for kids, right? To like encourage kids into engineering. And I'm like, I just feel like sitting there with a kid and a book is just so much like nicer, like than having something on a screen. And also just for like the longevity factor, I thought if I put it on my website, you know, there might be some buzz, and then like in a couple of years you won't really think about it. But if it's a book on like Amazon that's available and you're like, oh, I can buy it new right now, sure, I'll buy it new. And then that's like a new experience with someone like 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line.
And it's that link, because that's how we do things. It's like human beings sitting around a campfire in the ages past, telling each other stories, and being able to do that.
Yeah.
And you can't do that with a device. So Yeah, there is that. There is that. Are you scared of where AI could take us? Because I've seen a lot on that. I saw that discussion with Elon Musk and God, it was a Google tech person, or might have been Rogan, where he was saying that Google people are talking about creating gods, like literally, and they kind of like mean it in the ancient sense of like Apollo, the god of light. And really, there's a degree of I'm not. And by the way, I need to say, like, I'm not asking you to agree with me. Like, I actually kind of want you to. I just genuinely want to know what you think about this. We can't. Now we understand that there are intelligences that are disembodied from human beings. Like in medieval times, we described these things as angels and demons and stuff like that. But fundamentally, what all that really meant was a disembodied intelligence. Well, now they're real, and we're going to be creating things, Marita. Like it's genuinely incredible. Like, you could program one of these things into a werewolf. You program it in and say, okay, you are a werewolf. And that thing will take on the persona of a werewolf and become a werewolf or a vampire. I mean, I'm using these negative things because they're the first thing that leap into the mind of a human. Obviously, it could work in the positive as well. But you think of the power of that. You think of what could happen. Like we can, and necromancy is going to be real too. There are going to be, you can literally, like, so if someone's led like a really big life, someone like you'd be able to put everything in, and Marita Cheng could create Marita Cheng to talk to bounce off as a work partner, and have this other Marita Cheng that's linked into Google directly to do these things. We can literally bring you, and we'll be able to bring back the dead. Like you'd be able to put everything in and have something speak to you in the voice of a deceased person, in the same mannerisms, using the same language. Like people are going to do that. Like it genuinely blows my mind. Like, and you're obviously on the, like I'm kind of some years behind this. You're clearly on the wave that is breaking through there. Like, what do you think about all this? I mean, obviously it's exciting, but like, is there a degree of fear? Is there like, what?
Yeah, I mean, people are already doing that. There's like companies that offer that. You could like enter in text messages of people and then chat with them. There's people like paying for that service of like paying to chat to someone's AI. It's this whole new world. I think that I mean there's so much progress. Like everyone's always focused on progress and how do we use this. And so it's really good at it's really good at like data analysts. Like it can look at something and it can count the number of sheep in a field really quickly, or it can like but it can look at like millions of pictures of sheep or millions of fields of sheep and like count all of them really quickly and not get tired looking at any of them. So like things like that like make it really, really productive. I think like even 20 years ago, if you want to count sheep, you have to like just stand there and like count it all, and it doesn't scale. If you want to count more sheep, you need more people and more paddocks, and need them like all over the world. So I think with this technology, it really like makes things a lot faster, a lot quicker. There's people using this technology to create better ads, image generating for ads, generating copy for ads. I think the place where this will make the biggest difference is in the healthcare sector, being able to analyze a lot of data around health statistics, around like genetics, and being able to like find cures for more diseases, but also like to customize medicine for people with different genetic makeups. So I think like using it for all of that is what's really, really exciting. In terms of like people having an AI friend to chat to, I think that's good. Like people, I mean, it's like in today's world, people are increasingly lonely and isolated from their friends and their peers, and so having like someone to talk to is really nice. So I know some people who've like used it as like for therapy, like just explaining their problems to it and then having it like give some advice. People, there's an app where you can download it, and you can practice like dating basically. So like you say to it what you'd say to your partner, and it's meant to like train you to like date better. There's also people who want to use this so that it can like coach you in dating better with like people in real life. And so yeah, it's kind of like, I guess, paying, rather than like paying for a coach or a consultant, it's like getting this like quick and dirty, quick and cheap like version of a coach.
Exactly.
Where you're like, the advice might not be good, but like, you've got someone to talk to. I have friends who've tried like the practice how to date thing, and they thought it was really funny because the large language model just said really weird things that you wouldn't say, and yeah, like made up all these stupid stories, and then the story wasn't even consistent from like one message to the other. And he was like, hey, can you send a photo? And they were like, sure. And then they didn't send the photo because we were wondering like, oh, if you ask it to send a photo, is it going to like generate an image and then send the image that's generated over to you on the chat? But it didn't do that. So the whole thing was just really funny. So I think, and then even with like people creating an AI avatar of themselves and having that have conversations with other people, there were issues with that as well. And so I think like this is all still really new territory, and we're still learning how we use it, and we're experimenting with a lot of different things, and some things are working and some things aren't. But yeah, this technology is magical, and we're still playing with it.
It really is magical. That's the best way to describe it. Like if you think of, like, we know that there's been interplay with technology, that technology has influenced human evolution. We know that. Like the discovery of fire is probably what led to, there's a lot of debate about this. You can't say definitively because it was so long ago, but it's probably what led to Homo sapiens becoming Homo sapiens sapien, because human beings have been in this recognizable body, like recognizably Homo sapiens, in so much as we know what a species is, which is another conversation in and of itself, for about 200,000 years. But we've really only been doing art and all that kind of stuff for about 60,000 or 80,000 years. So there are a lot of people, a lot of evolutionary biologists who are discussing, and obviously there is a degree of semantics and a degree of categorical framework here. It's like, well, what constitutes a human? Is it just being physiological, or is there something, is there this extra spark that kind of like goes with it? And the consensus seems to be, no, this extra spark is you could be physiologically human. You could have the brain capacity of a modern human, but still not be humans. Like we didn't become human as we understand humanity now until about that time. And it was probably fire, because it had something to do with fire, and that's probably cooking and all that. So we could cook means it doesn't take as much energy to digest meat, so you can put the energy to your brain. Means you can use it for creative things. There's all these things, and there's been all these other times in history where technology has influenced. There has been a relationship between human evolution, but what we are, not even who we are as individuals, but what we are collectively. And this is another one of those moments. Clearly, this is a Promethean moment where the gods themselves are coming down from.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think it's like, we're kind of discovering who we are in exploring this technology. Like, what is it that makes us human? What is the essence of human? Actually, I met this like roboticist who made a robot clone of himself. So he's a university lecturer at the University of Kyoto, and he the Japanese really like their robots. So he made a robot clone of himself, and he would joke that he made it so that he could have the robot give lectures while he went and did more interesting things. And yeah, for him, he said like the interesting thing about robotics was like coming to the essence of like what it is to be human. And so yeah, I think that's really interesting. Like, I think all of this technology is inviting us to like question ourselves of, yeah, what is it to be human? What is it to have a soul? What is it to be creative? What is it to, what makes us human? What sets us apart from the machines? And yeah, I feel like that's something, we're exploring.
Wow. And you're on the forefront of it. It must be so exciting.
Yeah, well, and so what humans are good at is we're good at like looking at an object and understanding what category it's in. So we can see a chair and we're like, oh, that's a chair, or that's a table, or that's a computer, or that's a desk. And what computers are better at than humans is they can look at a bird or a chair and they can say, that's this species of bird, or that's this kind of chair, or that's like this shade of color, or I mean, color's a bit harder actually if you're like further away, but I mean, like a human will be able to say, oh, that's green, or that's blue, or that's red, but like computer vision would be able to say, well, that's this is the specific shade of red it is, or the specific shade of green. And so yeah, humans are good at like generalizing, and computer vision is better at like being deeply specialized in like species of animals.
How far are we away
yeah.
from fully autonomous robots are we?
Fully autonomous robots? I think we're a bit away from it. So the reason why we've been able to, one of the reasons why we've been able to get so far with computer vision and natural language processing and ChatGPT and all of that is because of the internet. And with the internet, a lot of people have contributed their ideas and like posted a lot of like text, images, a lot of information up. And so we've, like, computer scientists have been able to use that information, categorize like the images or the text and learn from it. And then train their algorithms on that data. And then as computers have gotten quicker and cheaper, they've been able to like train on better devices and train larger amounts of data, and that's why we're where we are now. Like the convergence of faster technology, the internet, in terms of like information out there, and so we have all this data that the AI has been able to learn from in order to like mimic what humans do. With robotics, we don't have an internet. We don't have 30 years of internet. We don't have 30 years of like internet, like robot database repository to draw from. And so yeah, we don't have the training data in order to make robots able to move around in the physical environment like humans are. We also don't have, I mean, there are robots that have the physical form factor of a human or thereabouts, but they only came out like recently and they're really expensive, and so there aren't as many of them in the world as there are personal computers. And so even then, when we're just not getting the training data in order to have these robots able to autonomously like walk around and autonomously like pick things up, manipulate things, and also like do reasoning like a human. So yeah, it's
when you say
we're not there yet.
So is that an issue of just not, is that an issue of input? Is that the only problem there, or is it a perception, or is it unable to perceive things?
But I mean, this like problem of input, it's like more nuanced than that. It's because like with training on images or text, like you've got JPEG files, you've got PNG files, you've got like .text files, or you got CSV files. So you've got like a small number of like, this is how we do a text file, this is how we do an image file. With robotics, we don't have a standard like that. So when I say that there's like robots out there that can move autonomously or walk like a human can, like different companies would do that differently. They'll have their own like protocols for how they do that, and so even between companies they can't really share data and just use it as easily. And so like creating that input is really hard. there aren't a billion robots out there like creating training data for us to train. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm very careful about saying I understand because I've spoken to so many experts now, and I've watched my interviews afterwards and going, you said you understood, you have no idea what that person was talking about. But but okay, well look, another article of yours that I really loved was you wrote an article saying the mindset, be a fool.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that, being a fool, it's kind of just, going into things and with an open mind that you don't know all the answers, and being willing to learn. And then only if you're like, hey, yeah, I don't know everything, can you like have that space to learn. Otherwise, you think you know everything, then no one can teach you anything.
Yeah, and it really is that simple. Would you mind telling us about your Churchill Fellowship?
Sure. Churchill Fellowship, that was a while ago as well. That was back in 2011. I got in 2010. I was actually like the youngest person to get it. And it's actually, so Churchill Fellowship it was actually established by Winston Churchill, where he said, let's establish this fund in Australia where we can have Australians like leave the country, learn from other countries, bring it back to Australia, make Australia great. And they like did this campaign to raise money, and they were like super successful, and they raised so much money. And that meant that now, like every year, they give out like 120 Churchill Fellowships around Australia for people who are experts in their field, go out, learn, come back. And so yeah, they have like different categories. They have like education, like music, medicine, like science. So I applied in the education category with RoboGals, and so I was like a finalist in the education category, and I was very lucky because that year they invited me back after I became a finalist, and they coached me, and they said they're going to ask you like at the national board when they decide on, well, sorry, at the state of Victoria board, they're going to ask you all these questions, going to be really hard hitting. So we're going to ask you some questions now. And they were like, where do you want to go? Like, they were like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do with this money? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll go overseas, but also, I want to go to other places in Australia and check it out. And they're like, no, never say that. The whole point of this fellowship is like to use the money to go overseas and then come back. You're not meant to talk about traveling in Australia. And I was like, oh, okay. So I think that was really helpful. And the reason why I say I was lucky that I had that is I think like a year or two after that, they were like, in order to level the playing field, we're going to ban the different categories from doing that. So I think like it was a service only offered to people where like the board was like, I don't know, keen enough to do that. And so the education board was like, we want our people to win. We're going to train our people. But then like maybe the music or the medicine category were like less ambitious or less had it together. So they didn't train their people. Anyway, so yeah, a year or two after I got it, they were like, no, we're not going to do that anymore. No one's allowed to train their people. So it's like more even playing field. Anyway, so at the state finals, there was like a big boardroom, and there were like 20 people, and they were all asking me all these like hard hitting questions, and was answering them as best as I could. And then I left, and after I left, people, they were discussing, and that I learned later that they all agreed I was too young and that I shouldn't get it. And I mean, I don't blame them. Like I guess I was 22 at the time, and yeah, but then one of them spoke up and said, it doesn't matter that she's young. Like she's like, her initiative is great. RoboGals is great. I mean, it was global at that time already, around Australia, around the UK. We're expanding to the US, and she was like, she deserves it, and she like advocated for me, and so I got it. And actually that person who advocated for me later became the governor of Victoria, and so she was like really proud for like kind of discovering me, and she'd like introduce me at parties and say, this is Marita, I discovered her. So yeah, that was really sweet. Yeah. And it was great. It was really great to get the Churchill Fellowship. Like I think it was good to like see these organizations around the world. And while I was traveling, I also used my time in the UK and in the US to like expand my organization. And we opened like our US Rubber Girls chapters then, and I went to the UK Rubber Girls conference, and yeah, I just met all these people, and it really opened my mind that yeah, if you it's in the details. If you take care to like just like even make a few tweaks here and there, then that's what makes all the difference.
Let's just say that you're a young woman in Cairns who was frankly inspired by what you did, and was hoping to emulate it. What would you say to a person like that? And what would you say to a young Marita?
Ooh, okay. To a young person who's like inspired by my journey, I think the thing about my journey is it's like very personal to me and like very authentic to me. And so I think to a young girl listener out there, I would say like look in yourself and see like what's authentic to you and what's like really like the essence of you, and then like dive into that and yeah, just explore that, because I really think that like my career has been really directed by like my passion for robotics and technology, and that's what has driven my career. It's just that goal of like I want to create great robots and great technology, and yeah, just with that passion and sharing that with people, and then doing projects that are like consistent with that. It's just led to it's led to where I am. And I think like the last projects that I've been working on are all really like true to the essence of who I am. Like they're just very like fundamental and near and dear to me and very close to me. And I think like if you do a project that's very fundamentally like close to you, then it just makes it more personal. You can put your own personal stamp on it. But then like I think like whatever project that you do should have that. Like even if you're like, I like what someone else is doing and I'm going to copy them, I think even by just like emulating them, you put your own stamp on it. And I read that many times with like comedians, like Steve Martin was like, oh, I really admire like David Letterman, I'm going to try and be like him. And then like by trying to be like him, he like became like the best version of himself, because you can't be, if you're Steve Martin, you can't be David Letterman, and you have to like find who it is inside you and explore that. So I think just like being really like authentic and honest with yourself can like open up those nuances of a project or an idea that makes it interesting. Because like anyone can say, hey, I want to write a book, and they just like churn out a book and then give it to the world. But like to say, hey, I want to write a book and I want it to, I want to say something, or I want to mean something, then like I think you need to like go in deep and like look in the details and really work on the details in order to like create a book that you're like, yeah, I really like this book, rather than just like any book. Yeah, I think I really show my connection to like Cairns and
Represent
place in my book. Yeah. And it's always just good to chat with someone who's like from Cairns as well, keeping it casual, keeping it real.
Yeah, that's it.
Just,
and
like chatting with people from like different walks of life.
Yeah, making sure that drawl comes out. You got to keep that North Queensland drawl going, Red. I want to hear Cairns. I want to hear it echoing through your nose. Cairns. I want to hear it like that's the way it's got to go.
Cairns. I don't know. I don't know. I do spend a lot of time talking to Australians still because of my work, and so but I definitely feel like when I go back to Cairns and I'm there for like a week or two, I'm like I definitely hear the difference in my drawl between the start of my trip and the end of my trip.
Yeah.
By the end it's like, oh yeah, mate, yeah.
She lost a little bit of the Queensland drawl though, didn't she? But still, it was an absolutely fantastic conversation. Really, really interesting from a young lady who's genuinely on the edge of tech, on the wave and has a future so bright that I almost felt like wearing sunglasses talking to her. Look, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Please like, please share, please tell your friends. Got some great other interviews still in the can, but I'm always chasing more people. So if you know of anyone you want to come on, make sure you contact me at Northern Vibe. Thank you so much. And